Welcome to episode 9. Oh, geez. Okay, let's start again.
Episode 9.
Moment of silence.
I, James, founded and work for HPI, but do not represent them or any of their opinions.
Welcome to season 9, episode 326 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Every week, we definitively answer one question about the future of tech. To do that, we take into account many factors, including the companies involved, the people working for them, their marketing, and of course, the technology they are developing. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and playing the Kerbal Space Program is my brother James Furlo.
The what?
The Kerbal Space Program? The greatest video? Oh my gosh, James, have I got good news for you. This is like the best video game. You make rocket ships. You make rockets.
I'm in.
It's a physics simulator for building rockets.
Seriously?
Yes.
This is who this show is also now sponsored by.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's the name of this app?
Kerbal. I think
is this like, can I get it on my phone? Like,
I don't think you can get it on your phone. I've never tried. It might be
Kerbal
Space Program.
Like Curbal?
Kerbal.
Kerbal Space Program. Yeah. Is it also called Simple Rockets?
It might be.
Simple Planes? Space Frontier? Oh man. All these apps look pretty awesome. All right. So would I go online onto a website?
Yes.
Kerbal Space Program. Siri suggests that's .com. Kerbal Space Program. All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week in our podcast.
Yeah.
It doesn't use Flash. That's amazing.
I know. It's it's great. They also have
sound, is there?
They also have like a doors. They also have like a hallway simulator that's built into it now, which is
a hallway simulator.
Yeah, it's
okay. All right.
It gets weird.
I'll have to check that out.
It's one of those games where, as fun as it is, the videos are almost more fun of the spaceships that people have created.
Yeah.
Fail spectacularly. What's the term? Unplanned rapid deconstruction.
Yes.
Unscheduled rapid deconstructions. So this week, sort of keeping with the theme, the question that we want to answer is this. Is Elon Musk the best, or is he the greatest?
Is he simply the best, or is he the GOAT?
There we go. That's and so this is kind of a fun week. I don't know why. So
I don't know why. I know why.
Well, I mean, I know why, but I got into it. I started getting really into, for some, like, I've always cared about SpaceX. If you've been a long-term listener, we care about the company, but like, I've never watched the launches live. I've never been I've always been into it more in concept than in practice. It's sort of like me in sports.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, I like the Warriors. That doesn't mean I watch them, but I like them.
Exactly. I do watch them, but I'm a
fair enough.
But yeah, so that's a great example. So I don't know what changed, but I really started to get into this and get excited and anticipate. And so, I wanted to kind of talk about the
Falcon Heavy, which was this last week.
Correct.
That was it a Wednesday, a Thursday? What day was it? Wednesday, right?
Wednesday, I believe.
I feel like it was a Wednesday.
Yeah. So kind of like, there's a couple of different pieces of this that I want to get into and to talk about. Number one, sort of the lead up to it. What was going on before the launch? What is it? How did the launch go, and why it's important, and where we're going in the future beyond that. So for this, and the lead up, I think, is actually part of the really interesting aspect of this, because there was a lot of doubt. We'll start with the fact that Elon Musk had very publicly stated that he was giving a launch success a 50-50 chance. of the Falcon Heavy.
Wow.
Yeah, not super high, but it's a very big change, and we'll get into a little bit about what's the difference between what was this test and why it was such a big difference and why it was such an engineering challenge. But that's where the guy who paid the bill to launch this thing was putting that at. This is also coming.
Take some guts.
Yeah, this is also coming right off the back of the failed Zuma launch, and if you're not following space launches religiously, you probably missed this. But there was a top secret launch satellite called Zuma, and it was carried up on a Falcon 9. And because it was top secret, you got the entire live stream of the launch up until the payload was actually revealed, where the main coverings, the main housing break off and show the satellite. And the video cut out a couple of seconds before that occurred, and then there was a little bit of question, and then so the satellite had gotten into space, and then everybody kind of went quiet for what was going on for a while, and then like the next day it was announced that the satellite had been lost. Now. And losing a satellite is a big deal because it's $100 million launch for a lot.
Yeah.
Or it can be, these launches can be they're tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, depending on the payload and where you're putting them into orbit. So, and that's just to get into space. So you're talking about a very expensive piece of equipment. This happens to be an ultra expensive piece of equipment. It was being built by Northrop Grumman. It was as best we can tell, a spy satellite. Super expensive, lots and lots of years spent on it, and to lose it is a big deal. And the question was, because it's top secret, nobody is able to say what went wrong and who's at fault.
Yeah, I mean, because clearly the thing went up into space.
Yeah, it made it, and SpaceX's response, statement has been, look, we did everything we were supposed to do. It's not, we are not at fault. And if there's any evidence that changes our opinion on that, we'll come clean with it. So the general consensus, and this is just people guessing because it's all top secret, nobody can say, is that Northrop Grumman actually messed up on the second stage, the coupling to the second stage. And this is
or they didn't mess up.
Yeah, this is actually
that's my vote. That's my vote.
This is the more fun one. Is that it's a secret spy satellite, and it's really hard to hide a launch, but it's really easy to claim that it disappeared in space. Nobody knows.
Man, we lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my vote.
Stop looking for it because you're probably not going to find it. So
it's totally blown up.
It's definitely not in space anymore. That's the one thing. But that's, honestly, chances are that's not what happened. Chances are it was lost, and it's a big question. So this is sort of what we're coming into. Also, as we were building down,
plus the Facebook one, middle of last year. I mean, it's not like they've been impeccable for the last 50 years.
Right. This is
the last 2 years. Yeah, the last 1 year.
These things aren't perfect. It's a brand new spaceship, and then the government shut down for.
Gosh, that's right.
And during that they weren't able to launch, which actually delayed them, and because they weren't able to do some of the.
Could you imagine that you bought your tickets and were there to go watch the launch, and that was the reason why it got scrubbed? Oh man,
I would. If you ended up being.
By the way, I would love to watch a launch in IRL. Can I say in IRL? I don't think that's.
Nope, that's definitely.
Cool. That's
you can if you're going to pay for it with your PIN number. What?
Yes. I would love to see a launch in real life. That'd be so awesome. Like watching those videos that like regular people took, or just you hear the sonic booms and everything. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Okay, so we'll get into it. We have a video that is definitely worth. It is my favorite video that I've seen. I've watched a ton of videos of the launch, the landings, and everything.
Is it the one that I shared or a different one?
No, I think it's a different. I didn't get it from you.
Okay.
It is. Right. It's a dude who was very far away, and just had the camera pointing at knew what he was doing. He had the camera pointing at the exact right spot in the sky. And so you see the rockets, the boosters, as they're about to land, fall, ignite, light off, slow down. And it's a really far off shot, so you're able to see the entire thing of them coming down. He pans.
Yeah, it's totally the video I shared, but you obviously got it from someone else.
It's like a minute long.
Yeah, and he's describing to you.
Yeah, and you get the sonic boom and
the
rocket, the boosters going off. It's nuts.
Yeah, and you're like, he goes, "There's a sonic boom." And you're like, what? And then you hear the reverberations of the rockets going off, and it just gets louder. And you're like,
it is the best, most surreal video that they've shown.
It's fantastic.
I loved it.
I wish they had a VR version of that. That would be awesome.
Before we get to,
they should have that just in general. What are we like? That should be a thing.
So before we get, that'd be great. Before we get to Hip for the Room, let's talk about what the Falcon Heavy is. So
okay. So
SpaceX has been launching rockets called the Falcon 9s. They are the 5th iteration of the rockets and quote unquote the final form of them. These rockets, their big selling point is that they can land themselves, so they're reusable.
Convenient.
It's a major
and cost effective.
Yeah, it's a major reduction in price. The Elon Musk's analogy has been spaceflight up to this point has been the equivalent of building a 747, flying it across the country, then throwing it away, because that's the best you can do. You can't land them. So now you can land them. It makes a big difference.
Makes sense.
And this is actually pretty good proving ground, because if you think about it, the space shuttles were proof that you could reuse a major portion of a rocket, so that part of the lift system. And so this was a valid strategy that they were coming up with. They overcame it. The Falcon 9s have been screaming successful. The Falcon 9s have 9 Merlin engines on them each. So each cylinder has 9 rockets. They've only had 1 misfire in the last 3 years, where one of the rockets was supposed to fire and didn't. The rockets can compensate for that, so it's not even the end of the world if they can deal with it. But the Merlin
and by
engine,
they mean the SpaceX computer that runs the entire thing.
Correct. Yes. But SpaceX has the actual engine that runs.
It's kind of like the first autonomous vehicles, if you think about it.
That's actually pretty true. But the point here is that their reliability is actually super high.
Yeah,
they're reusable, they're relaunchable.
That's cool.
They do full thrust tests before every launch, which nobody does, because these things are all designed to be one and done.
One and done. Yeah.
So Tesla is one of the few that can even do that practically. So the Falcon Heavy was basically the idea. The simple explanation was you generally speaking have 1 core that brings up the payload. They're going to strap 2 to the sides and have 3. That ended up being quite the engineering challenge, because the 2 side boosters are standard Falcon 9s. They've already flown more than once. But the center one, the core, as they call it, had to be really specially designed to deal with the added force of everything and to deal with it. So the center core is a highly specialized core compared to the side ones. But that's all right. It's also got the second stage. The payload to low Earth orbit is 140,700 pounds, which is really big. So low Earth orbit is obviously like the lowest you can go and still be in orbit around Earth. To get to Pluto, it could get a payload of 3,500 kilograms. To Mars, it can do about 1,600 or 3,700 pounds. And to get to Geosync, GTO, it can do about 60,000 pounds. This is a really big rocket. This is the biggest payload that any current operating rocket can do on Earth. It is not the biggest rocket that's ever built. That is a crown that has been held by the Saturn V and continues to be.
Saturn V.
Saturn V.
I'm looking at a size chart here.
Yeah,
it's crazy. It looks like NASA had some bigger ones or concept ones, maybe?
Larger ones have been built.
Mm.
There have been concept rockets that would have been bigger than the Saturn V. The Saturn V, when they talk about the biggest, it's not physically the biggest, but it's the largest carrying capacity of any rocket that's ever been built.
Wait, say that again?
It's the largest carrying capacity. So the payload that it can actually get into space.
Okay.
And so to give you a comparison, the Falcon Heavy, low Earth orbit, we just said 140. The Saturn V could do 300,000, so twice the payload to low Earth orbit. Like crazy big. One of the fun parts that Musk threw out there is he goes, there's no real reason why we can't strap 2 more boosters to the Falcon Heavy. Called it the Falcon Super Heavy. And he's like, then he'd be bigger than the Saturn V. You totally want to do that. You didn't just throw that out there as like a casual thing. You have engineers working on how hard that would be to do. The thing is that generally speaking, most payloads that need to get to space, satellites and stuff, unless you're sending humans to the moon with return spacecraft, you don't really need something as big as you don't need something that big. You can get by without it, which is why nothing exists. There's no market forces that's pushing anybody to build a rocket that big. Right now, so it just doesn't exist. It's 230 feet tall, which is pretty tall. It's white and black. It's got 9 Merlin engines per booster for 27 Merlin engines total. And again, with a super high level of reusability, it can produce 1,700,000 pounds of force at sea level to get it.
That's a lot.
Out. Yeah, it's enormous. The Falcon Heavy that went to space came complete with 1 Tesla Roadster and a Spaceman.
That's right.
Yeah.
Spaceman with David Bowie, right?
Mm-hmm. And on the dashboard, it had a "Don't Panic," a tip of the hat to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I appreciate.
Is that what that was?
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's this Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy comes with a sleeve with a large word emblazoned on it. Don't panic.
I like it.
Yeah, so it's this is very cool, and a lot of people were wondering why, kind of flustered by, why are you throwing a $750,000 or $250,000 car into space? What's the point of this? And the reality of it is that for these sorts of tests, you need what's called a dummy weight. Companies use lead blocks, or steel blocks rather, or concrete blocks. Just simple.
Because they're cheap.
Yeah, they're really cheap. And Musk had a spare original Tesla lying around. So decided, let's put it in his face.
Because he understands PR and how to get attention.
Yes, exactly. It's actually, there's value to this. I've read some dumb articles about, not dumb articles, but
just people who don't have a sense of humor and don't know how to have fun articles.
Yeah, well, especially because they're like one of the it's
not their money.
Well,
it's okay.
They're frustrated about the twisted irony of a union-busting billionaire CEO throwing $250,000 electric cars into space on his privately owned rockets, and just people who are frustrated with the way the world has worked, does work, and will always work.
This is one billionaire I don't think you need to be upset at, but okay, fine.
I know, that's where I'm at. I'm like, Musk, we're going to get upset. I mean, he's not perfect, but he's the closest thing we have to a superhero right now. Like, come on, Tony Stark.
I mean, he could be off buying islands, I guess, but he's not. Some billionaires try to solve polio, which is awesome, and they should, and malaria, which is ridiculously awesome. He's trying to solve he firmly believes that the world is in peril and we need to become multiplanetary, and he's solving it. And Yeah, he had an extra Tesla around.
You know,
Okay.
well, it's funny because I'm actually going to defend it even more.
What do you want him to do? Be living in a little hut? Come
I'm going to
on.
defend it even more passionately because we're going to have a link that you can check
I
out.
would like to see the house and the cars that the people writing these articles drive. And I would like to
Well,
see the
they're just
food that they eat and the clothes that they wear.
well, they're.
Seriously?
I
Come
mean,
on.
I say this fully acknowledging that this is a valid political economic system, but they're communists. That I mean, and if you
I actually,
legitimately believe,
I'm going to say this on the air, but I like communism. There's things about it that work really well.
honestly, if you
Works
can
well in my family. Let's put it
if
that
you
way.
can over, you know what, on the smallest level, I think it's the best operating system. If you can overcome the flaws of humanity, I think it's the only thing that obviously works. The thing is that it's, you know, it's got issues. That's not the point of this conversation, James. The point is that it's people with completely different political, economic points of views that are coming at it, and I think this is the absolute best that like most societies can really hope for is a relatively benevolent like billionaire who's trying to find long-term solutions and solutions that because it's got to make money in order to work at this
He's
point.
having fun with it. Would you really rather him spend money putting together concrete blocks and sending that up?
Honestly, and this is the thing. Yeah, seriously, if you compare it to how much money he personally invested in the building of this rocket, because this doesn't just go down as R&D. This is
Yeah.
like this rocket is just a throwaway at this point because we'll get into it. He's not going to they're not going to reuse any parts of this rocket, so they got to deconstruct everything and test everything. So this was a complete throwaway. The cheapest part of this rocket was the Tesla.
Crazy.
I know, but the thing is, and this is actually why I wanted to bring up the controversies because um, there's a there is a GIF that you can short video that you can check out, and it was somebody posting a diorama of their preschoolers. There's a diorama of the solar system in their preschoolers classroom, and hanging between Earth and Mars is this little red car, and the reality of it is, and as dumb as this sounds, it inspires people, it excites people, and that's important if this is an industry that's going to continue. You need young people, really young people, and people in their 20s, and people in their 30s, and people in their 40s who have the brain power to help these things succeed and to join these companies with the enthusiasm and excitement that this will work. Like, this is an idea that we talk about every once in a while, but innovation doesn't just happen. In retrospect, sometimes it seems like it does, that it's its own thing and it would happen without people, but it doesn't. It happens because people with vision lead others. And this is how people with vision lead others and get other people excited. There are kids that saw these pictures of the Tesla with the Earth reflected off of it and are like, oh my gosh, I want to be part of this. And they're going to be engineers and leaders of Tesla and SpaceX and other companies that are going to help lead to the future. I don't know. I think it's important. I actually think it's really important and
Yeah,
great.
one of the things that Malcolm Gladwell writes about in his book Outliers is like he points to the success of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, and he goes, "This isn't random.
Yeah.
What are the chances that the two guys who start the computer revolution, their birthdays are like 2 months within each other?" He's like, "Come on!" And you start to go back and you look at the research, and at least, especially for Bill Gates, he goes, he was a guy who he lived upper middle class and they could afford to have these Fortran computers or whatever the language was at the time. And he learned how to program in like middle school, which was virtually unheard of. And he was the first class that had an opportunity to do it. And so everybody before him never had a chance to do that. And everybody after him was now behind by a year.
Yeah.
and it was like, and yeah, there was an entire year of students, and it just so happened that he lived in a district that had the funding to be able to buy one of these the first year that it was available. And then he invested all this time into it. He goes, it's not chance. Like that situation has been brewing since he was a child. And
Yeah.
and there's things like this where you get there, like if you look at this is how you can predict the fall of the NFL, because you look at enrollments for Pee-wee leagues and stuff like that, and you go, whoa,
Yeah.
they're way down.
Yeah.
That's going to follow. And part of it has to do with all the news and everything that's coming out of it. And parents going, oh, geez, I don't know if I want little Johnny hitting his head like that, which I'm like, he's small. It's not actually a big deal until he's in college. But, okay.
High school's not good for it either, but.
yeah. You're not quite strong enough yet to really do a lot of damage.
That's true.
Anyways, where's I going with this? And I think it's true with things like this too. Like there's kids, like you talked about, who are watching this. Heck, there's kids who are just getting out of college and saying, all right, do I want to focus on building a new social media app, or do I want to work on a VR rocket launch app? Like that's what you want to work on, because that's what I want. Heck, I'll even take an AR one, have a rocket launch in my backyard. That'd be sweet.
Some would argue that would be even better.
That'd be pretty cool. And so I think that there's totally credence to that.
Yeah. So obviously we're saying that the Starman and his Tesla ride made it to space. Obviously, two of the rockets landed. We talked about the video earlier. It is the best video.
It's amazing
that was put out there.
It looks like science fiction.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Just go like, seriously, that just happened?
Yeah, it's amazing. So Starman was meant to go into a Mars distance orbit around the sun. So basically, he wouldn't be orbiting Mars, but he would be orbiting the sun at the same distance that Mars orbits. He did a couple of orbits around the Earth before they shot off. That was
Makes sense.
Proving ground to the military that they could do that, and the level of performance that they could get, because they're trying to prove for contracts. The funny thing is, I'm pretty sure that all of the engineers didn't expect it to even get that far, because when they did the final burn to send it to Mars, they miscalculated, it turns out, and it is going to the asteroid belt. It's going way past Mars.
Really?
Yeah, and they're like, it's hilarious, because it's like you could tell they clearly were like, somebody was like, how much, how far will it go? And they were like, I don't know, Mars-ish. And they're like, should we look into this? And like, it's not going to make it that far. Don't worry about it. Something will go wrong. So yeah, they're going to overshoot Mars by quite a distance.
Let's hope they don't do that when they eventually make the trip.
Well, I think that's the funny part, is that they clearly just didn't even look into it. They just, a couple of the lead engineers.
It's some intern do the math and no one double checked it.
Yeah, wait a second. We put way too much fuel on this thing. But that's actually a good sign. That's not a bad sign. You want to overshoot, not undershoot in this sort of a circumstance.
Yeah, I get that.
And then, so the biggest disappointment for the audience was that they lost the core. So the two side boosters landed. Those had already flown once and had been reused, so those were ready to go. But the core, which was completely new, needed 3 of the Merlin engines to fire for it to be able to slow down enough to land on the barge out in sea. Only one of the engines lit, and thing hit the ocean at 500 feet per second. Pretty hard.
It's hard to land those.
So it is quite lost. It did a bit of damage to the drone landing ship.
Yikes.
But I think one of the things that is so exciting about Tesla, and as an engineer, I think it's the greatest lesson you can learn, is that the Tesla engineers or the SpaceX engineers are clearly more excited about losing the core than landing the two sides. Landing the two sides are like, yeah, that's what we knew we would do that. That's fine. The core, we learned something from. And Elon Musk has long talked about how failure is the main driver at SpaceX, and how failure is built into the company, and they've got to keep moving forward.
I actually thought that was an interesting theme all week, actually, because my prediction last week was thankfully wrong, and the Eagles won.
Yeah.
And what was interesting is they were interviewing Nick Foles afterwards, who seems like a really cool guy. And one of the things that he talked about was failure. And he was like, failure is important. It builds character. It teaches you things that you can't learn otherwise. And he goes, I'm here today because of my failures. And because I, at one point in time, almost quit the NFL and, wasn't sure of my future and really had to lean on, what do you say, his family, his faith, his, people around him. And so he talked about how failure produced character, which produced strength, and just some good teachings there. And this is a guy who's like coming off of the biggest win of his life, not even just career, his life, and put it in perspective. And and I think a lot of people have talked about Musk that same way, especially like with his 50-50 chance things, where he's like, yeah, failures happens. It's okay, and you got to take a chance. And if you're taking a chance, that means you're going to fail sometimes, and that's all right. Yeah. And I know for me, I've thought about this before. Where I'm like, man, if I'm not failing, that actually starts to concern me, a little bit. And it's been an interesting week trying to seeing successful people be honest and be real about that, and go, no, failure's the thing. We need to embrace it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's cool, and the idea that failure. The difference between somebody who's successful and somebody who's a failure is only one success. The person who failed quit before they succeeded.
Yeah, well, yes.
I mean, sometimes you're just a loser and you're going to fail no matter what, and you're better off giving up. But in this case, the analogy,
there's balance there,
Yeah, no, for sure. But that's the point, is that that SpaceX, they know, hey, we failed to land the core. That's not a problem. That there's something for us to learn and to grow from, and that's exciting. And that is why SpaceX succeeds where nobody else will even venture. And it's cool. It's exciting, and I like it. So before we're a little bit late on our advertising.
No, dude, we got that out of the way at the very top.
That's good. Sure. Yeah, go buy Kerbal Space Program. Go get it. It's awesome. It's definitely worth it. So the why this is important. Obviously, it's the largest, the most powerful rocket in production today. So bigger payloads can be brought to space. This launch is just about testing the Falcon Heavy. Military is really interested in this. All sorts of companies are like, hey, let's get on it. They're hoping to do like 4 Falcon Heavies a year and 20 to 30 Falcon 9s a year. So it won't be nearly as frequent, but they want to be launching it with some regularity. And
for a smaller satellite, you don't need to do the big one. I get it.
Most business is the smaller rockets, so this is pretty good. But this is all leading to the BFR. Which stands for the Big Falcon rocket, but is in the parlance of the youth, the big.
Is it the Big Falcon rocket? Is that really what it is?
It actually stands for the Big Falcon rocket, but it's the Big Frickin' rocket, and they bleep that part out.
That was what everyone. We had we came up with there was a tool that we were using at work, and we came up with a very detailed, granular, intense version of it. And we were talking about, like, what do we call this thing? And he goes, what if you called it the telemetry metric indicator? How does that sound? Like, the TMI, huh? Yeah. He goes, yeah. Like, I love it. That's the new name of it.
Perfect. Yeah. So one of the things, so that's the next step. But the big thing here is that the Falcon Heavy can launch a Dragon capsule, which could carry astronauts. So doing trips to the space station or doing trips to the moon and back, that's what the Falcon Heavy is capable of doing.
Well, let's do it.
SpaceX wants to focus on the BFR because they think it's a more important rocket for the future. And they don't want to spend time and money on something that is just a stopgap unless the BFR hits real roadblocks, then the Falcon Heavy can pick up there. So that's kind of where they're going. And ultimately, as we've talked about before, this is all about spurring on a space race to Mars. Boeing has claimed that they can beat SpaceX there, and Musk's response was, great, do it, which is wonderful and awesome, and part of the reason why Musk is such a lovable dude. And I think the big question
isn't a competition between us.
Yeah, we're trying to race to Mars so we can save humanity from itself. That's actually what's important. Yeah, so this is the new space race is heating up.
That's great.
Getting excited. So the big question is, are they going to sell any SpaceX flamethrowers? That's the final question that we've got here. But
it sounds like they're thinking about it.
Right? In a way, they do sell SpaceX branded flamethrowers. They just cost $50 million to launch.
Yes.
But
for now.
It's cool. It's right. It's a cool week. It's fun. It was fun to watch.
Man, crazy, man. What a cool guy.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know. He's got a good imagination, he's got a good engineering brain, and he's got a good pocketbook. That all helps.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Man, that's cool. I do like that I think it was I don't know. I get like Boeing can be what they want, but Jeff Bezos was even like, hey, good luck, guys.
Yeah.
On your launch. You know, you're like, that's cool. There's that cool, like, I think they both get it. We're like, dude, we're both billionaires and life is fine. Like,
yeah,
this isn't a be all end all. By the way, at the end of their little telecast, before they kind of like felt like abruptly ended it, you could tell it didn't land.
I know.
when they just were like, well, I guess we'll find out later, and we got to sign off. Bye. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it was interesting at the end. They were like, hey, if you want to be part of the team, check it out. SpaceX.com/careers. And I watched that video with Jessie, and she was like, well, did you go to the website and check it out? I was like, well, no, but all right, let me pull it up. And I did. They have like one marketing position because, well, they don't actually sell to people. So
right, yeah.
they don't need that. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I probably won't be working for them anytime soon. I think it was in Hawthorne. But yeah, they have a lot of engineering jobs in Seattle, but I don't qualify for a single one. So that's cool.
I should look into it. Do they need mechanical engineers with a software?
Yeah, they might. I feel like that's a thing that could work. Yeah, cool, man. SpaceX, good job. So when's the next launch?
The Falcon Heavy? No, it's not scheduled. But
okay.
But this is a screaming success, so they're probably lining up the paying customers right now.
Oh yeah. They probably were already kind of lining them up, and now they're signing paperwork.
Yeah,
which is cool. I love it, man. Very, very cool. So, our question for you is: Did you watch it? Did you get into it, or is this news?
Yeah.
Were you like SpaceX? Yes. I think to officially answer the question, I think I'm going to go with he's probably the best. The best.
Well, I don't want to get too controversial, but I'm going to go with he's the greatest.
The greatest. That's fine. That's fine. And maybe that could be our secondary question. What do you think? Is he the best or the greatest? Make sure to cite your sources in your answer. And good. With that, we want to say thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. You can check out all the links to our show on furlobros.com/326. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes and Google Play. We want to say thank you to those of you who contribute to the show, and thank you for a bunch of people who wrote articles like Lauren Grush of The Verge, Eric Berger of Ars Technica, Swampna Krishna at Engadget, and a bunch of other folks that provided information. We really do appreciate it. My name is James Furlo, and my Kerbal Space Program playing video game brother is Matthew Furlo, and so we will talk next time.